problem that any IT company faces today is that while there is a lot of thing available in the open source that you can simply pick up and use, the same is true with the chatbot as well, that there are so many chatbot building platforms that you can go ahead and build one for yourself. Building production grade chatbots is still a very difficult task. From the perspective of jobs, right? If you are planning to get the job of a software developer today, I won't say that just learning Java might be helpful. There are other things that you need to learn as well. If you remain in academia for very long, you actually lose the sight of what is probably relevant for people who are working on these technology stacks in industry. So over a period of time, you become too. I'd say your thinking becomes a little too specific towards academia, right? You start looking at problems from the perspective of publishing papers rather than building systems that could be used by someone in industry. Try to be as close to what industry needs rather than staying in academia and doing a few more courses on Coursera. It's very important to build up skills which are relevant.
Hello, students. Have you ever pondered the inner workings of chatbots? In today's world, chatbots are ubiquitous in a variety of industries, starting from small farms to large high-tech enterprises, providing customer service round the clock. But what is the underlying technology behind these chatbots? And from scratch, how can you make it one for yourself? This could be a very profitable business indeed, because the era of artificial intelligence going to observe chatbots entirely replacing human workers in customer service and various call centers, potentially threatening to job losses. Therefore, it is now time to start thinking about the future and finding the right ways to reshape your career goal. In today's competitive job market, how much coding do you really need to learn to secure a decent job? If so, which programming language should you start with? With so many options like Python, Java, C++, it can be overwhelming, isn't it so? While Python is currently leading the charge in the world of artificial intelligence, but what about Java? Is it still relevant today when AI is booming? On top of that, Java is quite hard to learn if you are with this self-help. So today we have our guest who will provide insight on all of these topics, from chatbots and programming languages to job opportunities. So without any further delay, let us invite our today's guest, Dr. Saurabh Srivastava. Firstly, thank you for joining us. Definitely, we are going to have a lot of interesting conversations about chatbots, which is also your research topics, artificial intelligence, Java programming, on which you also had industry experience. But before we get started, I would like you to share with us what kind of experiences you gained. I see that you have had a number of jobs in various industries prior to being a full-time professor at IIT. And in addition to being a software developer jobs, you have also worked for ISRO as a scientist for a few years. So let's start with ISRO first. Tell us about your job experiences at ISRO, and when do you decide to leave ISRO for your higher studies?
Thank you, Ayan. So I started off at ISRO right after my graduation, and the work that was there was mostly development. Even though you get to work with people who are trying to do some good research, but in the beginning of your career, it's mostly a development profile. The work that I did was basically related to building tools, software tools, which were supposed to maintain as well as monitor the health of a typical satellite, right? This is a very dumbed down version of what we did, right? Essentially, for every satellite, you have two types of things that you are supposed to take care of. The first one is the satellite itself, the onboard equipments which are necessary for the satellite to work. And then you have a payload, right? So payload is essentially the part of the satellite for which it is used, right? So in communication satellites, the payloads are these, receivers and transmitters. For remote sensing satellites, the payloads are some kind of cameras. So my work was essentially in the field of health monitoring for the basic satellite components, right? So we built software tools which actually helped people from different backgrounds to be able to understand how their subsystems are working currently on the satellite. And we used to have a lot of interaction with another center of ISRO, whose job was to track the satellite once it has been sent into space. We used to get data from them, and then we had to process that data. So it was essentially a data processing related work profile that I had in ISRO. I also knew right from the beginning that maybe I would, at some point of time, I would like to go for higher studies, right? And I stayed in ISRO for around 2 years or so. And after that, I decided to join IIT Kanpur for pursuing my MTech. So I would say it was a nice experience. The 2 years of stay that I had in ISRO, it was a nice experience. It taught me a number of things because this was the first job I actually had, and an experience in job is always different as compared to experience in academia. So from that perspective, I would say yes, those 2 years themselves were also quite helpful in building my overall shape, the shape of a professional that I am today.
So now tell me, since you have also worked as a software developer with various experts, and I think most of your work is based on Java programming. Apart from that, you have also worked on machine learning algorithm, which is also based on Python. So my first question in this regard is that a machine learning algorithm can be easily programmed in Python, but Java can be much more challenging to learn. So how much Java is relevant to someone whose focus is mainly on machine learning?
Well, that part is correct. So almost all the machine learning related work that gets done today, um, you'd see that the programming language used is Python. But I must say this, that while the actual research work is done quite heavily in Python, when it comes to building real systems that are going to interact with actual users, right? This is where Java still has a say. I give you a very simple example. There's a library called MediaPipe. It's a library that can be used to do certain things for face recognition. Right? For example, it can give you certain types of points on a face. Right? This is the typical starting point for any face recognition or face image processing applications that are dealing with faces. Now, the whole library, you can see that essentially the code is available on GitHub as well, is in Python. But when you want to use those features on an Android application, right? Let us say you're building some application where those features are required for you. It's the starting point for you. So there you'll realize that you would need this code to be interfaced with some Java code. And this is where Java comes into the picture. That while you might not actually do core machine learning research in Java, but at many times it would be required for you to interface your core machine learning work with some application that is being built in Java. Android applications are classic examples. So as such, while Java might not be the primary language for doing machine learning research work, if you intend to build something that needs to be finally converted into a working solution, there I would say, maybe Java still has a role to play. So that is why if you just want to be purely in the field of research, then maybe you don't need Java, especially if you want to work on machine learning algorithms, and only algorithms I'm saying. I'm not talking about systems, the actual systems who use them. Then maybe staying with Python is perfectly fine. But the moment you actually decide to build a solution, and that solution has to be sold to users. That is where I would say that you might have to look into Java, especially if you are looking at building mobile applications out of it.
Okay, so Java is required for when someone is going to join to an industry. It has some industry-based application, and for that reason, Java knowledge is required. So, can you shed light that what is the job market and how much Java knowledge is required for someone who is also from non-CSE background?
Um, see, this is something that is very difficult to comment on straight away because job scenario changes very fast, and whatever is popular today might not be popular tomorrow. But from that perspective, still, I would say that any technology, any programming language, which has a reach as huge as Java, because see, one of the major aspects of Java is that it has a very nice breadth to it. Breadth as in there are so many places where Java could be used, right? Android applications is just one example. Another major, I would say, field where Java is still quite active is the field of ERP solutions, enterprise resource planning solutions, right? These are the enterprise-wide suites, I would say, right? Suites which have, let us say, some component for the account, some component for finance, some component for HR. Different departments have their different components, right? So all these suites that are built, right? I mean, historically they've been built in Java, and still a lot of legacy code in Java exists. So this means from the perspective of jobs, right? If you are planning to get the job of a software developer today, I won't say that just learning Java might be helpful. There are other things that you need to learn as well. But I can always say that having Java on your resume is like a plus. Most of the modern day programming courses often start with Python, and it's as you already mentioned that it's a perception that Python is probably easier for a beginner as compared to someone who has done it, who has been working for it for a very long time. So from that perspective, yes, right. I mean, the number of people, at least in the younger population, who would be willing to work in Java as well as who already have some kind of working knowledge of Java might not be too high. So from that perspective, I would always suggest that have Java in your skill set. It doesn't mean that Java alone can probably give you a very lucrative job, but having that on your resume would always be a plus. You'll probably have certain things that you could do which maybe someone else cannot. That is the idea. So now let's discuss your research on chatbots. Perhaps we can also discuss something less technical so that our viewers can get a better understanding of what's going on. So just to give you an example, let us say you want some kind of help on, let us say, any e-commerce website, Amazon, for instance, right? Typically, there are certain number of ways in which you would like to do that. Of course, the first way is that you can try to check up the help topics that Amazon provides you, right? You can go ahead and try to find out, let us say, how can I cancel a subscription? This is probably your question. So then you can go to the help topics. You can try to find out where does it talk about subscriptions, and then you can try to see how can I cancel a subscription. Another way in which you could try to do that is just explore Amazon on the go and try to find out the exact option that you're looking for, right? This you might do if you have some time with you, but if you're trying to do that in a hurry, that's really not an option. The third option, of course, is to go and talk to the Amazon customer care, right? You have to talk to a human being. But even today, even in as far as Amazon is concerned, today, if you try to contact their customer care, you first have to interface with the chatbot, right? It's essentially a kind of an automated response software component where it will ask you for certain questions and you're supposed to provide an answer to it. And based on that, the navigation works out. So how exactly is it that these chatbots have come into picture? The major reason here is that many a times as human beings, the questions that we ask are rather simplistic. It's just that we are probably not having enough time to go through, let us say, help topics or search on the internet for getting our answers, and that's why we would want a human being to guide us. For such scenarios, especially when these queries are quite repetitive in nature and quite rudimentary also, it's probably a wastage of resource to put up a human being to help you out. In such cases, that is why many companies say that, okay, in the beginning, you should try to interact with the chatbot. If you don't find your answers, then maybe we can connect you to a human being. So it's like if your queries are too simplistic, maybe you can first try to find it out using what are known as conversational interfaces. So a conversational interface, as you can now understand, is essentially a way to give you answers not via a typical FAQ page, right? The frequently asked question page. But instead of doing that, we are going to give you a software component. You ask your question, and the component simply spits out the guessed answer for the question that you have just asked. So this is where chatbots come into picture. A lot of businesses today are interested in putting these chatbots on their websites, on their apps. The reason, as I just mentioned, is that there is a very good chance of optimizing the customer relationship management related resources, CRM related resources, right? And because of which, if you are able to build a chatbot which can at least be given the initial interaction chances with the user, then it might save you some money. As far as building a chatbot is concerned, there are actually a number of chatbot building platforms today. In fact, one of the work that I did as part of my PhD was to analyze some of the common chatbot building platforms and then try to take a gist, just as in what are the most common features that these platforms have, and from the perspective of a user, what are the most common features you require in order to build a simple chatbot. Fortunately, almost all these platforms provide you a very nice interface, and with the help of these interfaces, you might not even require writing a piece of code, to be honest, right? There are certain types of chatbots which can be built without writing any piece of code at all. Of course, if you would like to have a chatbot that is probably commercially viable, who has, let us say, a production grade performance, in that case coding might be required. But building up a simple fun chatbot today, it probably doesn't require you to know any kind of programming. So from that perspective, chatbots are a very nice software component. They are all powered by the advances in deep learning, machine learning, as to be precise, right? And they are a very good example of how machine learning can actually enrich our lives if they are put in place in a very good context. That is the idea.
So, is this data-driven kind of thing, chatbots? I mean, those features, how to develop those features?
So, of course, data is probably the backbone of almost all machine learning and artificial intelligence related applications. So, yes, data is important here as well. Typically, for building a chatbot, you require some kind of training, right? You need to train the chatbot that if this is the question that the user has asked, what would be the answer to this question, right? This is a very simple way to tell what kind of data do I need. Now, when I'm formulating these questions, of course, these chatbot building platforms will tell you how to categorize your data, how to cluster your data. And then, for example, there is a concept called an intent, right? So whenever you ask me a question, I can say that this question could be related to, for the case of Amazon, for instance, right? You can say that it might be a question related to purchase, it might be a question related to refunds, it might be a question related to delivery, it might be a questions related to, let us say, my Amazon Prime membership. So these are some categories under which a typical user question might fall. And this is all provided by the chatbot building platform. You can actually come up with different types of possible questions that a particular user might ask for the same intent. That is the idea, right? So for example, I might ask, how can I purchase a book? This is one way to ask the same question. Another way to ask the question would be, can I purchase a book on Amazon? This is another question which is probably trying to ask the same thing. So the intent of both the questions is exactly the same. It's just that I need to tell my chatbot these are some 10 different ways in which user can ask you this question. And if this is the question, this is the answer to it, right? So the idea is you try to provide your chatbot as much data as possible in the form of sample questions, and then the chatbot tries to learn that if this is the question, this is the new question that is coming to me, which category, which intent is it closest to that I already know about. And then for that particular category, you define a response that for this type of questions, this is how you should respond back. So in the simplest term, essentially, the more data, the more training data you give to your chatbot, the better are the chances that it will actually be able to provide the correct response to the user's query. And of course, most of the chatbot building platforms today also supplement these things. Supplement as in, even if you provide 3 or 4 formulations of questions, it doesn't mean that if there is a small change in the natural language sentence, I will trip. No, that's not the case. In most cases, the chatbots are able to extrapolate whatever you tell them, right? So it's possible that told me 3 types of questions. The question that the user asked was in the 4th formulation, but it might be able to extrapolate it, right? It might be able to figure out that, okay, this new formulation looks similar to the 3 formulations that I have already seen. So from that perspective, in most cases, you'll have to provide 8 to 10 different forms of the question, and the rest of the forms can probably be figured out by the chatbot itself. So yes, you do need data, and the more the better, but it doesn't mean that you have to provide exhaustive amount of data. Even a moderate amount of data can still give you a very good chatbot today.
Okay, so in this connection, I have one follow-up question that once you train the chatbot, it is being built, then what is its future research? I mean, if some companies is based on chatbots developing, so how they can scale their business?
So usually one of the major problems, see, a major problem that any IT company faces today is that while there is a lot of thing available in the open source that you can simply pick up and use, the same is true with the chatbot as well, that there are so many chatbot building platforms that you can go ahead and build one for yourself. Building production grade chatbots is still a very difficult task. And the reason is that natural language has so many different variations, right? And I haven't even started about major problems that a chatbot might have to deal with. Sarcasm, for example, is a major problem for chatbots because you might say something else, but you might mean something else, right? That is the idea, right? And figuring out sarcasm is a huge problem for a chatbot, right? So all these companies who are building chatbots, they are continuously trying to come up with more models, better models, which can figure out, let us say, with the help of the context of the previous statements that were interchanged between the user and the chatbot. So with the help of this context, they might actually be able to predict that your next sentence, which seems to be a positive one, might just be sarcasm, right? So it's like saying that, the chatbot says, sorry, I cannot help you with this right now. And then you reply back, oh, great, right? It might seem that, oh, great is a positive sentence, but the chatbot would probably realize that, no, based on my last response, oh, great is probably not a positive response coming from the user. It's probably sarcasm, right? But it's not straightforward. The typical chatbot building process does not involve finding out sarcasm, for example, right? So this is a point of research, right? The better you are with these things, the better you will sell. So as a company who's planning to build commercial chatbots, this is very important, that you have to continuously strive towards building better models, because natural languages are hard. And if we talk about languages other than English, there is still a lot of scope, because almost all the chatbot building work has been done in English. And for other languages, things are not really up to the mark. So if you are talking about vernacular mediums, if you're talking about some regional languages, a lot of work is still left, because the language models in these languages are not really as good as English. And the chatbots' accuracies depend heavily on these language models. So yes, a lot of research scope is still left, and people are doing work there.
Okay, thank you for such a nice, clear, and precise description. So, can you tell something about your present vacancies on your research group?
I'm still looking for PhD scholars, certainly. I am in need of motivated students who would like to work with me and explore some of these issues in greater details. I'm also expecting a couple of projects to come up my way in the next few months or so, in which case I would also be looking for research scholars on the projects. But as of now, my major requirement is for PhD scholars. Of course, master's students are also possible, but of course, the way master's students are enrolled here is there is a different fashion. You have to go through certain exams. GATE is the exam in India. We do consider GATE scores from other disciplines as well, but during the interview, of course, it will be harder for you if you do not have basic computer science knowledge. You might still be called up for an interview, but understanding basic computer science is pretty much a requirement. This is the case pretty much across all the IITs as well. That while they might consider a GATE score in other disciplines, electronics, mathematics, they are all accepted disciplines. But at the time of interview, you should have at least basic knowledge of computer science. That is pretty much required. So at least in our department, we are perfectly fine with students who have some kind of background in computer science or allied departments. So when we talk about allied departments, it includes students from mathematics, students from electrical engineering, students from electronics and communication engineering. So these are common backgrounds, right? So we do consider people who come from these backgrounds. Of course, you should have a good knowledge of computer science. Your background might not be in computer science, but still, because the work that you would be doing would be in computer science, so you should have at least fundamental knowledge of computer science. So that is a requirement. But yeah, as far as your overall academic history is concerned, yes, there are relaxations that are possible.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to ask you one final question that I think will be quite useful to our viewers. Before joining IIT Kanpur as a PhD student, you have gained many professional experiences, right? Including working for ISRO for a few years, working for other companies as software engineers, developer jobs, and finally becoming a faculty member at such a premier institute. So I have two follow-up questions regarding this. And the first one is, does your industry experience help you with your PhD? First, and second one, if someone is academically oriented, do you recommend them to have some industry exposure before joining as a PhD?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, I would say not just helped, it actually helped me a lot. That whatever experiences I had gained as part of my industry stints, um, the major reason that and I'll also like first give a very short answer to the second question as well, and that is yes, that I would suggest students even with academic background to at least spend some amount of time in industry before let us say going for higher studies. So now to come back to both the questions again, one of the major reasons that stints with industry help you is that if you remain in academia for very long, you actually lose the sight of what is probably relevant for people who are working on these technology stacks in industry. So over a period of time, you become too. I'd say your thinking becomes a little too specific towards academia, right? you start looking at problems from the perspective of publishing papers rather than building systems that could be used by someone in industry. This even includes building tools, for example, right? It's not always the case that you build solutions directly for the user. Sometimes you build solutions for other developers as well. So you might be able to contribute towards building a tool, um, which is then used by a person in industry to finally build a product for the user, right? So it's possible that you are building solutions which are not B2C, business to customer. You are building B2B solutions as well, business to business solutions. So I would say that yes, definitely my stints in industry gave me probably a more wider horizon. I could think from that perspective that whatever I'm doing, it should have at least some impact on someone in industry. As I said, it could be a very small tool. It could be a very small piece of help that I'm providing. But still, the utmost reason for doing something should be to affect someone, um, increase someone's overall performance, right? To increase someone's, let us say, work quality. So from that perspective, I would say being in industry is always helpful. It was helpful for me, and any person who's academically oriented, I would also suggest the same, that it's not necessary that you spend 10 years in industry, but maybe a couple of years, 2 3 years, 3 years, 4 years, that you should probably do in order to get a better perspective.
Okay, thank you. So we are on the verge of our session. So do you want to provide any advice to future BTechs and researchers?
I'd say that one of the major ways in which you can gain some very good insight is by tying up with industry for small periods of time. For example, internships are a very good way to go about it, right? And the good thing today is that many industries actually offer you 6 month internships. When I was in my BTech, I think internship meant only about 1.5 months of work, but today it can range up to 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, right? So whenever you find an opportunity like this, just grab it with both hands, right? I mean, it's probably better to spend a few more months in industry rather than probably doing another course in academia, right? So from that perspective, I would always say, if you get an opportunity, try to maximize your internship 10 years. The second thing that I would say is that it's very important to build up skills which are relevant for industry. So even when you come back from your interns, or when you have already interacted with some people in industry, it's important to understand that while in academia your job is to learn fundamentals, but the ultimate goal of learning those fundamentals should be to contribute something. It contributes something to industry, contribute something to society. Overall, your work should somehow improve someone else's life. That should be the idea. It might not mean you are doing something that is worthy of a Nobel Prize. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that even if you increase someone's productivity by a couple of percent, right, that too is in my view a good achievement, right? It means that you've built something that is useful for someone. So from my perspective, all the students in their BTech today, right, try to find out a link, right, with the help of which you can get some kind of internships. Even if you can't get an internship, try to be as close to what industry needs rather than staying in academia and doing a few more courses on Coursera or edX, right? It's always better to build something rather than just keep on studying.
Thank you, Saurabh, for having such a nice discussion, and bye.
Thank you, Ian. Bye.